Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Ati Mataji, thank you. Hare Krishna. Pawan Prabhuji. Hare Bol for leading the chanting. Okay, we will start with Mangalacharan. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namaham Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminite Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschat Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. Happy Krishna Janmashtami to all the devotees. May Lord Krishna appear in the cradle of our heart. हमारे हृदय को we can make it as a jhula. And may Lord Krishna appear today. So let's continue with our prayer. Chaurashtakam. May we invite him to make our heart like a butter so that he will come to steal butter in our heart. Okay, let me also post the link. Okay. I can sing today. That's okay. So we'll continue by the Chaurashtakam by Srila Bilwangal Thakur. व्रजे प्रसिद्धं नवनीतचौरं गोपाङ्गनानां च दुकूलचौरम् अनेकजन्मार्जितपापचौरं चौराग्रगण्यं पुरुषं नमामि श्रीराधिकाया हृदयस्य चौरं नवाम्बुदश्यामलकान्तिचौरम् पदाश्रितानां च समस्तचौरं चौराग्रगण्यं पुरुषं नमामि अकिञ्चनीकृत्य पदाश्रितं यः करोति भिक्षुं पथि गेहहीनं केनाप्यहो भीषण चौरैदृग् दृष्टश्रुतो वा न जगत्त्रयेऽपि यदीयनामाभ्यरत् अशेषं गिरिप्रसारान् अपि पापराशिन् आश्चर्यरूपो ननु चौरैदृक् दृष्टश्रुतो वा न माया कदापि धनं च मानं च तथेन्द्रियाणि प्रणांश हृत्वा मम सर्वमेव पलायसे कुत्र धृतोऽद्य चौरा त्वं भक्तिदाम्नासि माया निरुद्ध क्षीणत्सि गौरं यमपाशबन्धं भिनत्सि भीमं भव पाशबन्धं क्षीणत्सि सर्वस्य समस्तबन्धं नैवात्मनो भक्तकृतं तु बन्धं मन्मानसि तामसा राशिघोरे करागृहे दुःखमयि निबद्ध लभस्व हि चौरा हरिचिराय स्वचौर्यदोषोचितमेव दण्डम् कराग्रहे वस सदा हृदये मदीये मद्भक्तिपाशदृढबन्धननिश्चल सन् त्वां कृष्ण हे प्रलयकोटिशतान्तरेऽपि सर्वस्वचौरहृदयान्न हि मोचयामि हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे श्री चौराष्टकम की जय श्रीला बिलवंगल ठाकुर की जय His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, anybody would like to read the translation?
I can read, Prabhuji.
Yes, Suchita Mataji, please go ahead.
Translation: I offer my respectful obeisances to that foremost of thieves, who is famous in Raja as the butter thief and who steals the gopis' clothes, and who, for those who take shelter of him, steals the sins which have accrued over many lifetimes. I offer my respectful obeisances to the foremost of thieves, who steals Srimati Radhika's heart, who steals the dark lustre of a fresh rain cloud, and who steals all the sins and sufferings of those who take shelter of his feet. He turns his surrendered devotees into paupers and wandering, homeless beggar. Alas! Such a fearsome thief has never been seen or heard of in all the three worlds. Mere utterance of his name purges one of a mountain of sins. Such an astonishingly wonderful thief I have never seen or heard of anywhere. O thief, having stolen my wealth, my honor, my senses, my life, and my everything, where can you run to? I have caught you with the rope of my devotion. You cut the terrible news. You cut the terrible news of Yamaraja. You sever, you sever the dreadful news of material existence, and you slash everyone's material bondage, but you are unable to cut the knot fastened by your own loving devotees. O stealer of my everything, O thief, today I have imprisoned you in the miserable prison house of my heart, which is very fearful due to the terrible darkness of my ignorance, and there for a very long time you will remain, receiving appropriate punishment for your crimes of thievery. O Krishna, thief of my everything, the noose of my devotion remaining forever tied, you will continue to reside in the prison house of my heart, because I will not release you for millions of eons. Hare Krishna.
Hey Krishna, thank you, Sushita Mataji. Okay, yes, so Srila Prabhupada, as a pure devotee captures the Lord in their heart. They don't even have to capture, they capture with their devotion. They capture the devotion to Krishna, and then Krishna himself comes, to be tied in the hearts of pure devotees. So, like Srila Prabhupada, yesterday we were reading, he is being recognized as the foremost uh, Swami, who is the authority of Krishna consciousness, because he has been able to bring all the Malechas, even Yavanas, all the people who are so sinful, who were sinful in the Western world, he has made them into devotees. So now people of India are taking notice of what Srila Prabhupada's contribution has been. So yesterday we saw how he is in Amritsar, and Amritsar also is like Amritsar, right? So the source of Amrit is Lord Shri Krishna. And Prabhupada, we saw how he called himself when they asked in the Golden Temple what the religion was. He signs A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami and a Krishnite, right? Krishnite. And in the comments he said, you know, what did he say? Spiritual, right? So always spiritual. So like so that is the definition of a Vaishnava. He's always a Krishnite. Krishna takes birth in the heart of the devotees. So that's why Krishna, so himself, Prabhupada is calling himself as Krishnite. And of course, now he's back from Amritsar through Delhi and to Bombay. And we saw his loving reciprocation with his disciples and his disciples' loving reciprocation with their spiritual master and spiritual father. Just at one instruction, when he asked Guru Das Prabhu and Yamuna Mataji and other disciples to go to Delhi with that devotee who had asked for Prabhupada to join him in Delhi, he told them to get off the train and then see what they can do, and then in without any further deliberation or question answers, they just immediately accepted the order of their spiritual master, and because they had complete faith in what their spiritual master had to say and complete faith in the process of Krishna consciousness. So that is the love of a pure disciple towards their pure guru. Okay, and of course, Prabhupada will continue to meet all the other elite people in Bombay. We saw how he met some famous business persons. He met famous movie stars, Vaijayantimala, and they all have so much of adoration and adulation for what Prabhupada has done around the world in making all these Western people Krishna conscious. Okay, so let's continue from here. The Indians regarded Prabhupada as unique. Even in a culture where swamis and holy men are commonly treated with respect, he was regarded as special. His visitors would beg him to come to their homes and sanctify them, and this was also in line with Prabhupada's desire. He wanted to engage the Indians in chanting Hare Krishna, hearing the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita, and honoring the Lord's prasadam. He wanted them to appreciate the purity of the Krishna consciousness movement, enlist as life members of ISKCON, and help him establish a large center in Bombay. In preaching to Indians, Prabhupada would often urge them to return to their all but forgotten spiritual culture. Our culture is Krishna consciousness, he said before a group of Bombay citizens. But we are forgetting and becoming too materially absorbed. Lord Rishabdev says that this is not good because according to the law of karma, you will have to take another body, but you don't have to give up your heart's struggle for material life. Arjuna was not advised to do this. He remained in his position and executed Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada concluded. I am begging. I have 42 temples in the West, and in each one there are 50 to 100 disciples. Thousands of books have to be printed. Please help me with this movement. Manohar Lal Agarwal, Prabhupada's host at Ram Sharanam, would often sit with him for hours, inquiring about spiritual life. Mr. Agarwal was particularly interested in hearing of Prabhupada's work in America. How had he transformed so many Christians into Rama Bhaktas? Had he been alone or had there been helpers? How did he dress in America? What was his approach? Prabhupada recounted his early preaching on the Lower East Side of New York, and he explained how everything had happened by Krishna's desire. Mr. Agarwal doubted whether Westerners would be able to stay with Krishna consciousness for very long. Now, in the radiance of your company, he said, as long as you are here bodily and physically, observe all these restrictions. But when your physical influence will not be there, one day when you will have to leave this world, then all these people that have come in contact with you, will they go bad? No, Prabhupada said firmly. Your claim is very tall, replied Mr. Agarwal. Can you tell me what is the basic foundation of your claim? Prabhupada reminded him that all his disciples had been initiated into the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, and that according to the Vedic scriptures, the constant chanting of the Lord's holy name will save even the most fallen souls and protect them from falling again. Even after his passing away, Prabhupada predicted his disciples would not fall victim to Maya as long as they continued their prescribed chanting. One day, Mr. Agarwal asked how long Prabhupada and his disciples were planning to stay. Prabhupada said that he was very happy staying where he was, but would try to find a new place immediately. Mr. Agarwal insisted that he had no intention of asking Prabhupada to leave. His home belonged to Prabhupada, not to himself. He begged him to kindly continue to stay. Prabhupada said this reminded him of an incident from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and he told a story about Haridas Thakur, the great devotee of Lord Chaitanya. Haridas Thakur used to live alone in a cave where he chanted Hare Krishna day and night. Many pilgrims would visit him, but when they learned that a python would also but then, when they learned that a python was also living within the cave, they became afraid. Although Haridas Thakur was satisfied with his cave, he didn't want to inconvenience his visitors. So he said he would leave the cave that very day and not return again. Yet, even as he spoke, the huge python came winding out from the back of the cave into the presence of all. Passing near Haridas Thakur, the snake bowed his head to the ground and slithered away. The super soul within the heart of the python had impelled him to leave the cave so that Haridas Thakur could remain. Prabhupada laughed as he told the story. Agarwalji, he said, you have said the same thing. You have said that you will go away and that we will stay. But no, we will go, we will go. Hare Krishna. Okay, so transition from dancing white elephants, chapter 32, into chapter 33. A lot of ground to be covered. Indore, December 3rd, 1970. India continued to be like a dream for Prabhupada's disciples, who gazed out the windows as the train moved them through India's unfamiliar rural world. The trackside bushes blossomed in yellow. Mile after mile of irrigated agricultural fields passed by. Wheat, rice, sugarcane, and varieties of dal. Small villages, mud-walled houses with straw roofs or thatched walls with tile roofs drifted peacefully by. An occasional village temple made of stone would rise above the surrounding simple structures. Cowherd boys with sticks tended their herds on the grassy banks of meandering streams. And the grazing cows, the oxen ploughing the ancient fields, the dung patties drying in the sun for fuel, the smoke rising from the cooking fires, and the smell of the warm earth, all were part of a peaceful, simple way of life the devotees were coming to appreciate through Prabhupada's association. Prabhupada and his disciples were en route to Indore, a city of 475,000 in the central Indian province of Madhya Pradesh, 13 hours northeast of Bombay. The directors of the Gita Jayanti Mahotsav, a festival to celebrate the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, had invited Prabhupada and his disciples to attend their convention and public meeting. In Indore, Srila Prabhupada and his disciples settled into their quarters near the Gita Bhavan, the site of the Gita Jayanti Mahotsav. The directors of the convention had assigned Prabhupada a bungalow with a lawn and garden, and had provided nearby facilities for his disciples. The devotees toured the grounds of the Gita Bhavan, noting the many swamis and sadhus who had arrived from various parts of India for the Mahotsav. They saw the large pandal and stage, the eye hospital run by the Gita Bhavan, and the diorama exhibit. The diorama exhibit they regarded as the kind of eclectic mixing of spiritual paths that Prabhupada often referred to as hodgepodge. Krishna, Buddha, Jesus, Vivekananda, Ramakrishna, and demigods and animals were all on display. While while admiring the energy and imagination that had produced such an exhibit, the devotees questioned the benefit of such a conglomeration. On the first night of the festival, Prabhupada was scheduled as the last speaker. His disciples, who sat with him on stage, grew bored and restless from the ordeal of so many hours of Hindi speeches, and knowing that these speakers were presenting Mayavadi misconceptions made the evening especially painful. Srila Prabhupada sat sternly and waited, his hand in his bead bag, his head held high, his lips murmuring the Hare Krishna mantra. When Prabhupada finally spoke, he began by explaining that in the West he was preaching the teachings of the Gita as it is. Bhagavad Gita, he said, could be properly understood only in disciplic succession, just as Arjuna, the original student of the Bhagavad Gita, had understood it. The Gita was for the devotee of Krishna and should not be misinterpreted by non devotees. To misinterpret the Gita, he said, was to cheat in the name of religion. He also spoke strongly against pseudo incarnations. Prabhupada concluded his talk and asked his disciples to begin Kirtana. It was an ecstatic, spontaneous event, and Prabhupada began dancing on stage along with his disciples. The crowd came to life and began clapping rhythmically. Hamsaduta jumped down from the stage, still playing mridanga, and began inducing members of the audience to join in chanting and dancing. Several other devotees also jumped down, and soon hundreds of people had risen to their feet, swaying, clapping, and singing Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. This was the real Gita Jayanti Mahotsav. The holy name of Krishna was being sung, and everyone was happily united in the Kirtana. Greatly pleased by the performance of Prabhupada and his disciples, the Pandal directors visited Prabhupada the next day in his bungalow. Prabhupada complained at having to wait so long before he could speak. His disciples shouldn't be required to sit through hours of speeches in a language they couldn't understand. When Prabhupada intimated that the speeches seriously deviated from the teachings of the Gita, the director of the Gita Bhavan replied, "We do not favor any particular way. Followers of the Shankara school and others also come to our institution. We do not subscribe wholly that Sri Krishna is the sole God or anything of the sort. There is a power behind him." This remark drew fire from Srila Prabhupada. What kind of glorification of the Gita was this if the speakers did not accept Krishna as he is explained in the Gita? The Gita declares Krishna to be the highest truth. Matta parataram nanyat. Prabhupada advised the directors of the Gita Bhavan to try to understand the meaning of the Bhagavad Gita. The directors did not change their opinion, but they were intelligent enough to see that Prabhupada was a great Pandit and saint, and they listened respectfully. Nodding, they said, they accepted his point of view. After the men left, Prabhupada continued, "They are thinking that there is something beyond Krishna, or that it is the spirit within Krishna that we have to surrender to. But they do not know that within and the without of Krishna are all absolute, eternal, and full of bliss." Prabhupada said he could see that the organizers of the Gita Jayanti Mahotsav had invited him to draw larger crowds, but they would not make him sit again through all the Mayavadi nonsense, he said. From now on, he would go with his disciples, speak, chant, and then leave. The next night, however, despite promises by the Pandal directors, Srila Prabhupada again had to wait until the end of the program before he could speak and hold Kirtan. This night, the crowd was larger than before, and they were clearly waiting for Srila Prabhupada and the foreign sadhus. When Prabhupada's turn came at the last, he spoke and then asked his disciples to begin Kirtana. During the Kirtana, one of the members of the Gita Bhavan gestured to the devotees to jump down into the crowd as they had done on the preceding night. But what had been a spontaneous event the night before could not be artificially staged simply as a crowd pleaser. The man, however, was insistent. He came forward to the edge of the stage, reached up, and began grabbing at the feet of the dancing devotees, trying to pull them into the audience. The devotees became annoyed. Grabbing indiscriminately, the man pulled at one of the women's saris. Srila Prabhupada was also dancing, but when he saw this, he rushed to the edge of the stage, swinging his kartals towards the man's face and shouting, "Stop this!" The man retreated, and Prabhupada and his disciples continued their kirtana. Although little noticed by the crowd, Prabhupada's burst of lion like ferocity had amazed his disciples. The festival directors were once again pleased with Prabhupada's lecture and kirtan, but Prabhupada sent them word that he would not again sit through the other lectures, waiting for his turn to speak. He had wearied of hearing opinions on Bhagavad Gita that avoided the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita, surrender to Shri Krishna, the absolute truth. Some speakers made the Gita an allegory, some said Krishna was not an actual historical personality, and some simply took advantage of the Gita's popularity to put forward their own political or social philosophies. A person with his own philosophy should write his own book, Prabhupada said, not use as a vehicle for his own ideas the Bhagavad Gita, a scripture worshipped by millions and respected throughout the world. Why should a conference under the name Gita Jayanti become a forum for speculative philosophies? Bhagavad Gita states that the Gita itself is the essence of knowledge, meant to benefit the entire world. To misrepresent the Gita, therefore, was the greatest disservice. Prabhupada felt that by sitting through such a program, he and his disciples were tacitly approving the blasphemous speeches. On the third night of the festival, Prabhupada and his disciples came early to the stage, having been promised by the festival directors that they would be the first on the program. But when another speaker stood and began his discourse, Prabhupada, followed by his disciples, stood and walked off the stage. The festival director was quite disturbed by this, since most of the audience had come especially for the Kirtana. He pleaded with Prabhupada to return, but Prabhupada refused. He did agree, however, to send his disciples every night. They would speak and hold Kirtan. Srila Prabhupada's disciples found the morning Bhagavatam classes in Indore especially relishable. Not only was the setting intimate, 10 devotees sitting with Prabhupada in his room, but the Bhagavatam story was intriguing, one they had never before heard. We are talking of Ajamil, a Brahmana residing in Kanyakuj, presently known as Kanpur. Prabhupada began, and he narrated the story of Ajamil's life, pausing from time to time to read the Sanskrit text or to elaborate on the story and its lessons. Ajamil, a young Brahmana, had strictly followed the religious principles until he became infatuated with a prostitute. As Prabhupada lectured, he focused on the bogus speakers at the Gita Jayanti Mahotsav. There are so many things to know, but these things are not being discussed here. It is very cheap to do whatever you like. You simply meditate and you become God. So much cheating is going on all over the world. The so called yogis say you meditate, and as soon as you are realized, you become God. The Bhagavad Gita is being interpreted in so many different ways, and these so called explanations are being accepted by the innocent people as authoritative knowledge. Someone is explaining that Kurukshetra means this body, and the Pancha Pandava means the senses. But this is not explaining. How can you explain the Bhagavad Gita as it is when you do not understand it? Such an attempt is nonsense. The five Pandava brothers, pure devotees of Lord Krishna, are referred to in Bhagavad Gita. They were the victors of the battle of Kurukshetra. In his second lecture, Prabhupada narrated more of Ajamil's life, his leaving his chaste wife and going to live with the prostitute, his adopting illegal means for supporting her, his having 10 children by her, and living sinfully until his 80th year. This story took place, Srila Prabhupada said, thousands of years ago. At that time, there was only one Ajamil, but you will find many Ajamils like that at the present moment, because it is the age of Kali. In his second lecture, Prabhupada narrated more of Ajamil's life, his leaving his chaste wife and going to live with the prostitute. Okay, sorry, we already read that. Ajamil had great affection for his youngest son, Narayana. And as Ajamil lay on his deathbed and saw the agents of death approaching, he cried out for his son, Narayana! Prabhupada continued his story. He was just on the point of death, So naturally, he had affection for his son. So he was calling, Narayana, 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 please come here, please come here. That is natural. I know my father. When he was dying, I was not at home. So he was living for one day to see me. He was always inquiring whether Abhay has come back, like that. So father's paternal affection is like that. And similarly, Ajamil was calling, Narayana, Narayana. Narayana is also a name of Krishna. And Prabhupada said that according to Bhagavad Gita, if a person remembers Narayana or Krishna at the time of death, he becomes liberated. One's mentality at death determines one's next birth. Because the devotee is Krishna conscious, he enters the spiritual world at death. And because the materialist is absorbed in sense pleasure and mental speculation, he has to take birth after birth in the material world. Prabhupada gave an example. One gentleman in Calcutta was a fairly big businessman. He was dealing in shares, stocks. So, at the time of death, he was crying, Kamarhati, Kamarhati. So, the result might be that he might have taken his birth as a rat in the Kamarhati mill. It is possible at the time of death. Whatever you think, that will carry you to your next type of body. Because Ajamil had called on the name of the Lord, even though referring to his son, he became purified of all sins. Yet, because of his sinful life, the messengers of Yamaraj, the Lord of Death, also appeared to take him for punishment. When Ajamil was dying, he saw that there were three ferocious persons, very fearful persons, with ropes in their hands. Sometimes the dying man cries because he sees somebody has come to take him to Yamaraj. He sees and he is very fearful. So Ajamil also became fearful. The assistants of Yamaraj have their hair very curled, and the hairs on their bodies are standing. Now at the time of Ajamil's death, the assistants of Yamaraj came to take him. Prabhupada paused. We shall discuss sometime again, and he ended his lecture. Prabhupada began making life members in Indore by sending Hamsaduta out alone. Hamsaduta was inexperienced and even skeptical that anyone would pay the 1,111 rupees. Hamsaduta one day, Prabhupada told me to go to the market with a neighbor and take these books. He had three Krishna books and try to make some life members. Just show them the books, he said, and tell them this is a token of our work. Then ask them to please help our mission by becoming a life member for 1,111 rupees. I was thinking that no one was going to give 1,000 rupees for two or three books. So I just didn't do anything about it. I just avoided the issue. The next day, Prabhupada gave me the same instruction. But again, I didn't do anything. On the third day, he said, I had to go. So I went next door and I got a man who took me to the cloth merchants. We went to the shop of the biggest cloth merchant in Indore. The man didn't speak English, so the neighbor who had accompanied me translated. I would say, tell him this, tell him that, and the man would translate everything. After I had exhausted my presentation, I said, now ask him to give a check for 1,111 rupees. My translator relayed the message, and the merchant immediately took out his checkbook and wrote the check. Then we visited another merchant, and the same thing happened. He immediately wrote a check. We went to another merchant, and he also became a life member. So I made three life members on the first day. And when I came back and told Prabhupada, he was in ecstasy. By sending disciples and by sometimes going out himself, Srila Prabhupada soon had a dozen ISKCON life members in Indore. Prabhupada, Hamsaduta, and Giriraj visited the king of Indore and invited him to become a life member, but the king declined. The devotees were disappointed, and in the car on the way back to Gita Bhavan, Hamsuduta asked Prabhupada, did I say the right thing about the books? My books are like gold, Prabhupada replied. It doesn't matter what you say about them. One who knows the value, he will purchase. Hare Krishna. Okay, we'll pause here. Hare Krishna. Yes, that is the value of Prabhupada's books. They are fully worth their price in gold. Like Prabhupada, he would read his own books because he would say that it's actually Krishna himself coming and dictating what needs to be written. It is through the mercy of all his predecessor acharyas um, that Prabhupada was able to write, because, and you remember, when he used to translate, he had the Bhagavatam translations of all the acharyas, Sridhar Swami, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Bilon, and Baldev Vidyabhushan, all these commentaries he would refer to before he would write. And so, yeah, he would personally say that, where sometimes, even Narad Muni would be there to listen to the Bhagavatam class. So that is the value. And of course, today's Krishna Janmashtami. We started this reading early this week, and Prabhupada celebrated Janmashtami while he was in Japan, right? And now today he's talking about Bhagavad Gita. So it's come the full circle. Lord Shri Krishna taking birth and Lord Krishna's final instruction of Bhagavad Gita, which is complete surrender. So from start of this week to end of this week, Prabhupada has given us the whole summary of how Lord is born in the heart of the pure devotees and what the instruction of the Lord is and who Lord is, because there is so much falsification and bogus propaganda being publicized all around the world about people's own philosophies, and they are using the Bhagavad Gita as a medium to transmit their own bogus philosophy. So Prabhupada is strongly defying all of that and and boldly preaching this message, like he was saying yesterday, because if all this demigod worship is going to go on, our preaching has to become even more vigorous and strong. And by his practice, he's teaching his disciples. And also, we saw some contrast yesterday how Yamuna Mataji and Kaushalya Mataji, they prepared the rice for Prabhupada in one instruction. And here, right, Hamsaduta Prabhu, he didn't kind of pay heed to Prabhupada's instruction on the first attempt. Right, Prabhupada had to tell him twice and then thrice before he went out and uh, distributed the Krishna book and made life members. But once he went, he saw he was empowered by the instruction of his Guru Maharaj, and he was able to make three life members on the very first day. So that is the potency of a guru's instructions. And when the guru says something, that should be like a um, it should be like just like we tie Krishna in the heart in this prayer that we sang. We have to tie that gaat maar leni chahiye, like we say in Hindi. Just tie it to the core of our heart. Like also this instruction of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that we sing Prabshiksha Ashtakam, like about uh, him being humble and being tolerant like a blade in the grass, right? So that instruction also, Acharya says, Prabhupada used to say, we should tie around our neck like a gaant bandh leni chahiye humko, because that is the quality which will help us chant the holy names constantly and continuously, the humility. Okay, so all right, anybody else would like to share anything from today's reading? Mataji's, Babuji's, anybody?
Hare Krishna, happy Janmashtami to all devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Ritesh Prabhu. Yes. Thank you for the wishes, Ritesh Prabhu. We look forward to having everybody's association for this Mahotsav today, celebration at our center. We'll start at 4 p.m. and we'll go all the way up to midnight, welcoming the appearance of Lord Shri Krishna. So we'll have kirtans, we'll have abhishek, we'll have cultural programs, and we'll have Aarti, Abhishek, and finally midnight darshan, cake cutting. So we're looking forward to a wonderful celebration, and hopefully we'll see you everybody there this evening. So with that, we'll conclude for today. Thank you so much for your association. वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णवृंद की जय, जगत गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद लीलामृत की जय, निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे, हरि
Hare
हरि बोल, हरे कृष्णा।
Hare Krishna.